Hey everyone, welcome. I'm so thrilled you're here for today's explainer. Today, we're diving into a narrative drawn directly from historical and scriptural sources that details the incredibly mysterious, ancient disappearance of the mighty Thamud civilization. Seriously, it's an absolutely fascinating story of ultimate power, impossible miracles, and ultimately a really terrifying downfall. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. How does a civilization that literally carves its homes into solid mountains just vanish overnight? I mean, we're talking about a people who possess such immense physical strength that they treated solid rock like it was modeling clay. Yet, according to the sources, they were wiped out so completely it was as if the earth just opened up and swallowed them, or the sky screamed right in their faces and froze the blood in their veins. That stark contrast between their invincible, mountain-carving strength and their sudden, totally inexplicable disappearance is exactly what makes this account so gripping.
Section 1. Masters of Engineering and Building, the peak of Thamud's power. So, to really understand their epic fall, we have to look at their rise. Deep in northern Arabia, well after the legendary flood of Noah, and succeeding the people of Ad, a civilization known as Thamud built what seemed like an unstoppable society. Picture this. They were surrounded by lush, sprawling gardens, erupting water springs, and these massive fields of date palms. But their true mastery? That was engineering. They didn't just build on the ground. No, they ascended towering mountains and carved these massive, intricate palaces directly into the sheer rock faces, covering them with mesmerizing engravings. They were, without a doubt, the undisputed kings of the earth. But, with this absolute power came absolute hubris. Nestled securely in their impenetrable mountain fortresses, surrounded by immense wealth, a really dangerous arrogance took root. They look at their own muscular builds, their towering architecture, and literally ask, who is mightier than us in strength? This raw physical power completely blinded them. They turned away from the Creator who gave them the land in the first place, and instead started worshiping stone idols. The society quickly fractured into a deeply divided class system. Tyrannical elites at the top, oppressed weaklings at the bottom. Corruption and injustice weren't just happening, they basically became the law of the land.
Section 2. The Impossible Challenge. Prophet Salih and the Defiant Elites. Right in the thick of this darkness and tyranny, a man emerged to completely challenge the status quo. His name was Prophet Salih. Now, he wasn't an outsider, he was a deeply respected man among his people, someone the elites actually hoped would one day join their ranks because he was so wise. But Salih brought a message that completely shattered their arrogant reality. With a calm, rational voice, he stood before the elites and pleaded for monotheism, asking them to just abandon their useless stone idols and return to a life of justice. Well, the elites were shocked and honestly pretty hostile. They decided to publicly humiliate him by demanding a miracle that was logically speaking completely impossible. First, they pointed to a very specific, solitary, barren boulder at the edge of the valley called Al-Kathiba, and demanded a living creature emerge right out of it. Second, this creature had to be a camel that was exactly 10 months pregnant. And third, she had to be gigantic, beautifully formed, and covered in perfect fur. Think about that. They were literally asking for cold, dead stone to spontaneously turn into warm flesh, blood, and life.
Section 3. The Miracle of the She-Camel. Life from a Barren Rock.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how exactly this went down. Saleh secured a firm promise from them that if this happened, they would believe. Then he turned to pray. The entire valley fell into a dead, heavy silence. Everyone's eyes were glued to that solitary, barren rock. And then, the impossible actually happened. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble slightly. From deep within that solid rock, a terrifying sound echoed out, a heavy, agonizing groaning, sounding exactly like a woman in labor. The boulder violently cracked open, splitting right in two. And this was no magic trick or illusion. This was the she-camel of God. By birthing this massive, living, breathing, pregnant camel directly from stone, matching their impossible specifications to the letter, the elites were forced to physically face the terrifying reality of divine power. She belonged entirely to the Creator, and Saleh gave them a very clear warning. This camel was a sacred test. She was to roam freely and eat from the land, and if they laid a finger on her, a swift and terrible punishment would follow. And this is exactly where the test truly challenged their deeply arrogant society. Because the miracle came with strict rules of balance and obedience. Check this out. On the first day, this gigantic camel would drink absolutely all the water from the communal well. The people were strictly forbidden to even approach the water. But in exchange, on that exact same day, they could milk her,
and she provided an endless supply of milk, like enough to completely satisfy the entire massive tribe. Then, on the second day, the camel would stay completely away from the well, allowing the people to drink their fill of water. It was this perfectly miraculous, alternating cycle of divine justice and provision.
Section 4. The conspiracy of the Nine. The resentment of the elites.
For the proud elites of Thamud, though, this arrangement was just intolerable. I mean, imagine being the kings of the earth, completely used to taking whatever you want, whenever you want it, and now you literally have to wait your turn for water because of an animal. Her continuous presence, just walking through their valleys day after day, was a constant physical humiliation for them. She was a living, breathing reminder that their impossible challenge had been met, and that they were definitely not the ultimate power in the universe. Slowly but surely, those bruised egos and wounded pride curdled into a dark, brewing conspiracy. The source material is remarkably specific here. Exactly 9 corrupt men gathered in the dead of night. These were guys who thrived on chaos and corruption. Hiding in the shadows, they plotted the ultimate betrayal. They just couldn't stand the truth walking among them anymore, so they made a pact to murder the miraculous camel and erase the evidence of their defeat once and for all.
To carry out this horrific act, they recruited a man named Qudar ibn Salih. The texts describe him as the absolute most wretched of all the elites, a short, cruel guy with these very distinctive red-blue eyes. Lured in by promises of incredible wealth and power, Qudar agreed to strike the fatal blow. They actually ambushed the she-camel in broad daylight. After she was injured by an arrow, Qudar stepped forward with absolute arrogance and brutally struck her down with his sword. As the miraculous camel fell dead, her terrified newborn calf fled up into the mountains. It let out 3 heartbreaking groans into the empty sky, and then vanished right back into the very rock its mother was originally born from.
So the crucial point is Section 5. The 3 days of terror. The countdown to destruction.
See, by killing the she-camel, Thamud didn't just break a simple rule. They basically declared outright war on the divine. When Prophet Saleh saw the slaughtered miracle, he was utterly devastated. The elites, doubling down on their arrogance, actually taunted him, demanding he bring on the punishment he had promised. So Saleh gave them a horrifying final decree. They had exactly 3 days left to enjoy their homes, a literal 3-day countdown to absolute destruction. What followed was a timeline of pure psychological horror. Saleh had warned them that their own bodies would signal their doom. On Thursday, the first day, the people woke up, looked at each other, and panicked. Their faces had turned a sickly pale yellow. The fear definitely set in, but their stubborn pride kept them from repenting. On Friday, the terror escalated big time as their faces shifted from yellow to a deep blood red. They knew the end was coming. Finally, on Saturday, they woke up to find their faces had turned pitch black, as if they were covered by the darkness of night itself.
Section 6. The Shriek and the End. The Dawn of Sunday.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate irony of their downfall. The 3 days were up. The massive, arrogant giants of Thamud, their faces now pitch black, didn't even try to fight or flee. They knew there was no escape. They just sat inside their impenetrable mountain fortresses, wrapped in their burial shrouds, waiting in complete, breathless silence. The entire valley was dead quiet, just waiting for the sky to fall. They had built these massive walls of solid stone to protect themselves from any physical army, right? But their destruction wasn't physical. It was entirely invisible. It came as the shriek, a single, catastrophic, ear-shattering sound from the sky that just exceeded the limits of human endurance, instantly destroying them from the inside out. Simultaneously, a massive earthquake violently shook the ground beneath them. In a fraction of a second, the mighty builders of Thamud were frozen in place as corpses. Whoever was sitting, died sitting. Whoever was standing, died standing. Completely wiped out. Prophet Salih, who was saved along with his few followers, walked through the eerie, silent ruins of his once great city. Standing over the lifeless, frozen bodies of the very people he grew up with, he delivered these tragic final words. "O my people, I had certainly conveyed to you the message of my Lord, but you do not like advisors." It's just a heartbreaking lament for a people who were given absolutely every advantage, even a blatant, undeniably physical miracle, but fatally chose their own arrogance over guidance. Today, the majestic, empty, rock-cut tombs of Madain Salih, also known as Al-Hijr, still stand silently in the desert. And yeah, they are absolutely breathtaking to look at. But based on the sources we've explored today, I want to leave you with this to think about. Are these ancient ruins just another beautiful tourist destination for us to snap pictures of? Or do those empty, hollowed-out mountains serve as a timeless, haunting warning that absolutely no amount of wealth, engineering, or material power can save a society when it is completely consumed by its own arrogance? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the history around you.